Hey everybody, in this video we are going to talk about finding the surface area of a sphere. In a later video we'll come back and deal with volume. So first let's just talk about what a sphere is. A sphere is a set of all points in space equidistant from a given point. Now when it says in space, that means it's three-dimensional. So here is a sphere, and if I put my pen in here and put the tip of the pen right there in the middle, then every point on the sphere is exactly the same distance from the tip of that pen. And that means the tip of the pen right now is acting as the center of the sphere. The center of the sphere is the given point from which all points on the sphere are equidistant. A radius of a sphere is a segment from the center to a point on the sphere. So let's look at this picture of a sphere here. Right here is the center. I'll put a C there for center. From the center to a point on the sphere, that is the radius. A chord of a sphere is a segment whose endpoints are on the sphere. Okay, so this right here is called a chord of the sphere. Its endpoints are both on the sphere. Now, if a chord happens to have both of its endpoints on a sphere and go through the center, that chord is called a diameter. Okay, so a diameter is a chord that contains the center of the sphere. A great circle is the intersection of a sphere and a plane that contains the center of the sphere. Okay, so right here, this is a great circle. On the Earth, a great circle could be any line of longitude. It could also be the equator. Okay, so it's the largest circle that could fit on a sphere, on any given sphere. A hemisphere is one of two congruent halves of a sphere. So this right here is a half of a sphere. This is a hemisphere. So either of the two congruent halves of a sphere. Okay, so if I take this sphere apart, now I have two congruent halves. These are both hemispheres. The surface area of a sphere can be found by using the formula 4 pi r squared. Now in this formula, r is for radius. Okay, so we'll deal with volume of a sphere in a later video. So we'll begin finding surface area of some spheres. So here we have a sphere with a radius of 8, and we're going to find the exact surface area, which means there will be no rounding involved. So when we put this in our calculator, when there's pi involved, we won't put pi in our calculator. We'll just leave pi as part of our answer here. So the surface area is 4 pi r squared. That's 4 pi 8 squared. Okay, so we'll pull out our calculators and we'll put in everything except for the pi. So we have 4 times 8 squared. And that is 256. So the surface area is 256 pi, and that is inches squared. Okay, now for our next sphere, we have surface area is 4 pi r squared. Now this right here, this 24, this is all the way across. That's a diameter, which means the radius is half of that. The radius is 12 yards. So 4 pi 12 squared. So 4 times 12 squared will go in our calculator, and that's 576. So we have a surface area of 576 pi yards squared. Next we have a 3.5 foot radius. So our surface area is 4 pi 3.5 squared. So in our calculator, 4 times 3.5 squared is 49. So we have a surface area of 49 pi feet squared. Okay, next we're going to have to do some things a little bit backwards here because we're starting with the circumference. So we're going to have to use the circumference formula backwards in order to find the diameter, the radius, and then the surface area. Now the circumference formula is circumference equals pi times diameter. So here the circumference is 12 pi, so I'll put that in here for C. 12 pi equals pi times diameter. And when I divide both sides by pi, pi cancels from both sides, so I get D is 12. Okay, so the diameter is 12 centimeters. A radius is half of a diameter, so the radius is 6 centimeters. Now I can use that radius of 6 to find the surface area. Surface area equals 4 pi 6 squared. Okay, so 4 times 6 squared is 144. So we have a surface area of 144 pi centimeters squared. Okay, next we have 6 for our radius, so surface area equals 4 pi 6 squared. So this is the same sphere we actually had right here. Once we found our circumference, or we started with our circumference, once we found our radius, we had a sphere with a 6 centimeter radius and got 144 pi as our surface area. Here we have 6 as a radius, so our surface area is going to be 144 pi. The units are different though. This one is in feet squared. Here we are given 576 pi meters squared as our surface area, and we want the radius. So the surface area formula is 4 pi r squared. And we know the surface area is 576 pi, so we can substitute that in for surface area. 576 pi equals 4 pi r squared. So let's divide both sides by 4 and pi. And on the right side, 4 and pi both cancel, leaving us with r squared. On the left side, the pi's cancel, and we have 576 divided by 4, which is 144. So we have 144 equals r squared. Now to eliminate squared, we'll do a square root on both sides. The square root of 144 is 12, which means that our answer is technically plus or minus 12 for the radius. When we have squared in an equation, we're going to have two solutions, positive 12 and negative 12. But in practical application here, we're looking at the radius of a sphere. That's going to be 12 meters. It can't be negative 12 meters, so plus or minus does not really apply here. Practically speaking, we can only have a positive radius, so 12 meters will be our radius. Next, we have a sphere with diameter 36, which means the radius is 18 meters. So the surface area is 4 pi 18 squared. So we have 4 times 18 squared, and that is 1,296. So our surface area is 1,296 times pi meters squared. And our next sphere, it's a very large sphere with a radius of 3,960 miles. Okay, now this 3,960 is approximately the average radius of the Earth. And I say average radius because in some places the surface of the Earth is higher, some places it's lower. But the average radius of the Earth is about 3,960 miles. So we are going to treat this as a real-world example. And when we deal with real-world problems, I like to not leave the answers exact, but rather round and have an approximate answer. So this time I will put pi in the calculator. So the surface area is 4 pi radius 3960 squared, and I will be putting that pi in the calculator this time. So I have 4 pi 3960 squared, and I get 197,060,797.4. So that's 197,060,797.4. So 197,060,797.4 miles squared. That is an approximate surface area of the Earth.